most important element, of course, in using Photoshop are the documents and the images that we will modify and create. In this leg of our tour, we'll focus on the document window area and how to open, save, and close documents. We'll examine how to zoom in and move around a large document, as well as some tips for navigating between multiple open documents. When you first start up Photoshop, you'll be greeted with a splash screen in which we can choose a new file. It's going to be a blank document, or open a file off our hard drive or network drive or some other source. You'll also see up here at the top that there are some tutorials available to you that you can use for additional learning. There's some browse tutorials as well as some more in-app tutorials. But I also want to show you that your most recent documents are listed here. So if you're working on a document and you close Photoshop and want to come back to it, you can get to it very quickly by choosing the document here. And this area can be scrolled. And you can also view it with thumbnails. I'm going to click the New File. That's going to bring up a dialog box. And up at the top of this dialog box, we can choose recent types of new files that we've created, different dimensions. I'm going to skip over the Save. We can create what would be normal photo documents, such as 7x5, 6x4, 3x2. We can choose print documents, such as 8.5 letter paper or legal paper, tabloid. Common art illustration formats, such as 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, 18 by 24 inches for a poster, or maybe a postcard that's 4 by 6. We can do web documents, common web sizes, large, medium, and another web medium. This one's 1024 by 768. Mobile. So if we're creating things for iPhones, those are options for us. There are actually more presets here, so if you're working on an Android phone and so forth, you can get to those as well. Microsoft Surface Pros and so forth. Icons for web development. So if you're one of the mobile app or web development students in our program, you will find that helpful. And then finally, film and video. So typically we can do 1920 by 1080, that's HD TV, or the 720 version, which is 1280 by 720. Those are probably the two most common that I use, but there are other formats here as well. I'm going to choose the 1280 by 720. Note that over here on the right-hand side, I'm seeing the details of that preset. I could actually name this preset if I wanted and create my own new preset. Here's the width measured in pixels, but maybe I want to work in inches or some other format. The height, orientation, portrait versus landscape. We'll come back to our boards later on. The resolution, 72 dpi or PPI is normal for screen presentations. 300 is probably the norm for print. Could go up to 600 or even higher. Color mode, in this case red, green, blue colors. We're looking with 8 bits on each of those color channels, so 24-bit system. And then my background contents. And I have options here of white, black, my background color, which is set up in the tools. Transparent, or I could choose something that's custom. So while these are the preset values, I can also do anything custom by putting in any values I want here in terms of the width and the height and the resolution and the background color. I'm simply going to click Create. Now in this case, it's giving me some ruler guides, and these are the safe areas for a video document. And I can go to the View menu and I can turn those ruler guides off. There's a show option here where I could actually turn those guides off if I wanted, or if I wanted to get rid of all those guides. And we'll talk more about guides and rulers in a future video, but just to demonstrate, I can go to turn those back on. And if I go to the View menu and uncheck Extras, that will turn all of those different extra features off or on. It's a toggle as well. Notice it appears up in the tab. It's untitled. I can have multiple documents open. So I'm going to go to the File menu and choose Open. Navigate to a directory for a file and open. I'm going to open this one. This is the Golden Gate Park, the windmill photo I took several years ago. And notice I now have 2 tabs up here at the top. I can go back and forth between these documents. If we look at this tab for the windmill, notice it's showing at 50%. It's a larger document than that can be displayed at full view on my monitor. And down here at the bottom is some information. It's 960 by 1600 pixels, being shown at 50%. Now, one thing I can do with the document, a couple of our tools here, there is a magnifying glass called the zoom tool, and I can zoom in on this document, and it'll show me the percentage I'm at. So I'm at 100%. If I hold down the Alt key on Windows or Option key on the Mac, I can zoom back out. If you look closely at the icon of my tool, it has a plus sign for zooming in. Holding down the Alt key or Option key on the Mac, it's a minus sign, and I can zoom out. Again, back to 50%. I'm going to zoom back in, because one other tool I want to demonstrate here is the Hand tool. The Hand tool lets me grab my document and move it around within the document area. So even though I can't see the bottom, I can, in essence, navigate down to the bottom. Now I'm going to go to the Windows menu, and there's also a panel here called the Navigator panel. That Navigator panel shows the thumbnail of my document, and this red square or red rectangular area shows what I'm viewing in my window. So again, as I move this document, you'll see that red square move up. I can also grab the red square and move it that way. If you want that to be a little bit bigger, you can stretch that window out. I'm going to collapse that window. I'm going to open up another document. Now, there are different types of formats that we can use here. By default, Photoshop is in a PSD format, stands for Photoshop Documents. And if you want to have layers, I'm going to go back to my windmill document. It has several layers here. And I can do things such as turn the text off at the bottom. That's in a separate layer. You will see that I removed some people from this photo. That's fixed in a separate layer. To retain those layers, you always want to save your document as a Photoshop PSD file. However, I can open a document that is not a Photoshop document, such as a JPEG or a PNG. Now, a PNG file has a transparency channel, and this little checkerboard you see back here is a transparent area. That means if I were to place this document, say in a word processing document or in a desktop publishing document or some other use, such as maybe developing a mobile app, whatever my background is would show through to this checkerboard area. As opposed to a JPEG, version of the same document, you'll notice it has a white background. It's the exact same PSD file that I saved. I saved one as a JPEG and one as a PNG. As I saved it as a JPEG, it changed that transparent background to be white. Now I can grab on the tab one of these documents and actually pull it away and undock it from that bar. And so now I can actually see both of them side by side. This image here is my active image. If I click on my PNG, you'll see the title bar kind of gray out a little bit. Now this is my active image. So I can see the active image in the tabs or on the title bar going to be in white. At the bottom of the window menu, I can see all of my open files, and the check mark is going to be next to the one that's the active file. So if I want to make that JPEG active, I could click the tape measure SMCC JPEG, or maybe I want to make the windmill, I can click the windmill. That's also handy sometimes if you have a file that's hidden behind another window. You can find the file under the window menu. I'm going to take my tape measure JPEG image, and I can dock it back with the other images by dragging it to that tab bar. Now, one reason why you might want to have an image as a separate document, I'm going to pull my windmill down, and I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. I can resize my windows just as you can in any other application. But I've got this text back here, photo by Stephen Hustedde. I want to put that on my Papago Park Desert image. So rather than taking the type tool and typing that in, I can drag a layer from one document to another, and it's easiest to do that if I can see both documents. So I want to make the windmill my active document. I'm going to grab my photo by Stephen Hustedde text, and I'm just going to drag it over to this Papago Park document. And there is my text. Now it's a little big for this image, so I might want to resize that and give it a smaller font. So that's how we open documents and work with documents, be able to pan them with the hand tool and zoom in. Now one thing I like to point out, for a lot of the tools, you'll see a little triangle in the bottom right-hand corner. That means there are tools underneath this tool. So if I click on that, you'll see there's a rotate view tool under the hand tool. And I can take my document and I can rotate the view. And return to the upright position before landing. If I want to close the document, I can click the X in the upper right-hand corner close box. It'll ask me if I want to save my changes. In this case, I'm going to say no. Now I've added a layer to my Papago Park, so when I go to save it, it's going to convert it to a PSD file rather than a JPEG image. If I want to keep those layers intact, that's exactly what I want to do. I can rename it if I want. I'm just going to click Save. And then I can close that file. Let's look at one more thing here in terms of saving files. We have Save, which will save the file on top of its original version. The Save As, you'll get this only if you went into the Preferences and set up that Legacy Save As checkbox. I like to do that because Save As then gives me the option to very easily save this in any format. The popular formats that we'll use are JPEGs, PNGs, which have that transparency channel. We'll probably do a little bit with Photo Camera Raw at the end of this course. We might also use Photoshop PDFs. And for more legacy type systems, you could use a BMP file. Those are pretty rare these days. There's also GIF, things like animated GIFs. Those are still somewhat popular. And then TIFF is another popular format that we might use for sending us to a service bureau or a professional printer. They often want that in a TIFF format. So if I want to save this JPEG as a TIFF document, I can simply choose TIFF and click Save. Have some options here that I can choose from. I'm just going to click OK. But that is how we open a document, view it, and save it. If you'd like to see more videos in the Photoshop Practicum playlist, click the title at the bottom. If you'd like to be alerted to new videos, please click my photo in the top right to subscribe to the channel.